Hello, everybody. I'm back, and it's Thursday night as usual. I'm waiting for me to come up on the screen here so I can make sure we're going out on the internet. There it is. So we know we're getting out there, and that's a good thing, right? So, welcome to the Thursday night live show of Minutes with Milo. And if you're tuning in live, hit me up in the chat. If you're watching it later, you can leave me a comment. It's kind of like a old man's chat. You know what I mean? It's just kind of slow. Hey, there's Roberto. What's going on tonight, Robert? Are you doing all right? You having fun? It's a good Thursday night. Oh, it's a pretty good Thursday night for me so far. Except I gotta work tomorrow. Special project. I don't want to go. No, this is my same cap. The one that you made fun of last time and called it a pudding cap or something. I don't know. You said that was old Southern slang for I don't know what. Maybe my brain's pudding. Put it in the cap. I'll go with that. That's all right. I don't care. So before I get started tonight, I'll let you in on a little story, Robert. Remember last week's show? I did it on underwater lakes, scientifically known as brine pools, B-R-I-N-E pools. And we watched and critiqued or viewed this awesome video that showed great footage of an underwater brine lake off the Gulf of Mexico. Can't remember the name of it, like Gargantuan or something. No, can't remember the name of it. Anywho, we went through that show. We talked about it. We made fun of it. We played around with it. It was a pretty good show. Woke up the next day. Okay, so Robert says a pudding cap is a baby's cap, like old school leather padded helmet. Well, you called it last week. You said it was a pudding cap. You're trying to say tell me I'm a baby brain. Maybe that's true too. I don't know. So anyway, did the show. Thought it was nice. We talked about it. It's pretty interesting. We even looked at Google Earth. That video that I watched and we talked about was put out by the BBC. Well, the BBC wasn't happy with me showing their little clips of their video on my channel since, I rock the world here. And they told YouTube about it. And so if you go out there to my channel and you try to look for video probably 218 under the live playlist, it's not there. I have it. It's still on the channel, but YouTube won't show it to anybody because the BBC had a content lock on it. Now, it wasn't copyright infringement. They didn't hit me up with that, but they did take it. I guess you could say they took it down. It's still out there, but nobody can see it except me. When I go into my channel and I look at my list of videos, I still see it there, but nobody else can see it or watch it or do anything like that. And it says, I can get around that by deleting those, blocking those clips. Well, dang it, man. That was the whole show, right? I mean, we watched the video clips. I stopped the clip. We talk about it, make fun of it. I said that one little fish looked like a helicopter flying above that lake. Thought it was awesome. So, BBC didn't like it. They spent the thousands and thousands, maybe millions of dollars on making the video. guess they have a right to, but I don't see where one dude with what, a blazing 135 subscribers that, gets 20 or 30 or less views per video is really breaking the bank for them. But anyway, luckily I didn't get a copyright strike, because of those things on YouTube, you get 3 of them, you're out. I don't know. So tonight's video, or tonight's show is, yeah, Robert, you saw it live. Me and you are the only 2 people in the whole, well, maybe if somebody else is lucky, they got to see it before the YouTube algorithm double checked it and confirmed that BBC had that lock on it and all this other kind of stuff. I don't know exactly when it was nixed or, taken out of rotation, however you want to say it. But, yeah, me and you, as far as I know, are the only people that have ever saw that video. That makes it a collector's item in my book. So just remember, you were here on the groundbreaking, and I may have to call you as a witness. Just saying. I don't know. So tonight's show is something that I guess in the back of my mind I knew at some level because I went through high school science. But I've seen these come up again and again on my social feed about this program where people in, I don't know, some small country that doesn't have, they live on an island, whatever, or close to the ocean, and they don't have a stable source of commercial power. They can light their docks or their sidewalks or whatever it might be with salt water. In the back of my brain, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I think I remember, electricity, conductivity, salt water, reactions, and all that kind of stuff. But so it stood in the back of my mind, and tonight I thought, well, let's look at that. Let's see what, I wouldn't call it free energy. And why wouldn't I call it free energy? Because there's no such thing. All right, somebody was like, well, the sun's free energy. Okay, all right. Yeah, it's out there. It's out there for the taking. But it costs you to take it or to use it. It's out there. All right. You can go out, you get a sunburn, you pay the price for that. Did you make energy out of it? No. Here's probably one of the closest examples that I can think of to show that the sun has energy and it's out there to be used, but it costs something. It's not free. Because Robert, I know you remember this. There used to be a iced tea commercial. I don't remember if it was Lipton's or whatever it was. And they used to make sun tea. Let me get over here. Sun tea. I don't want you to see half my air quote. I want to see the whole rabbit ear air quote. So you would take, I guess, a gallon jar. Cost number 1. Let's just throw the lid in for free. So it's a gallon jar. It's made of glass. That's a cost. The water you put in it, that's a cost. Minute cost, but still a cost. Then you got to have the tea bags. And you put the tea bags down in the water and screwed the lid on so they didn't fall inside. Exactamundo. Robert says, yep, set the jar in the sunshine. You go out there, you set the jar in the sunshine. Now, first caveat. You have to set it in the sunshine. So that means for the hour or more time. Hold on a minute. I'm on call. All right, I'm sorry, I'm back. So I cut the mic off before I told the audience. Robert understands this. He's been through it. I'm on call tonight, and my phone rang, and it wasn't anybody. It wasn't anybody that I knew, so I had to answer it. But before I could answer it, they hung up. So, is that my fault? That's not my fault. If it's really important, leave me a message, right? Okay, back to the sunshine jar. So, it takes time for the sun to heat the water, and that makes the tea come out of the bags. And the longer you leave it in the sun, the more tea flavor you get because the water gets warmer. Now, do you have to sit it in there an hour? Do you have to sit it in there 5 hours? I don't know. But my point here is this. You've got to keep it in the direct sunlight. Let's just say it's a beautiful summer sunny day, but the sun doesn't stay in the same position, okay? So you sit it out there on that stump in the yard. Everybody's got one. And you go back to check on it an hour and a half later. Well, the daggone sun's moved across the sky, and now it's behind the other trees that you didn't cut down. And there's no sun on your tea, and it's not made. All right? So, my point is, the sun shines out there. It's free to collect, but it's not free to use. Okay? So, this technology is good. This making light or making power with this saltwater deal, that's what we're going to be talking about. But it's not free. All right, so there's going to be components that you have to. Oh, by the way, I've got 10% of my battery remaining. So there's things you're going to have to buy. And so there's no free lunch. But this is really kind of interesting because you could, and I didn't realize this until I started looking at Gemini here. And of course, I was using Gemini. And by the way, Gemini is the one that linked me to the BBC video. I'm not saying it's its fault because I never asked it about what the content licensing was for it. But be careful. So I asked Gemini about this, and it came through with lots of information. And that's what you want from Gemini. You want to get lots of information. Now it's not letting me go to the bottom of my information. All right, here we go. I was asking. I gotta scroll up. So, oh, you're killing me. Stop it. What this program is, these islanders don't have a stable source of commercial power, and they want sidewalk lights or tiki lights or whatever it might be. They provide them with, I think this may not be the exact program, but they provide them the knowledge or the materials or whatever to make these LED. And then, as far as I know, this trick only works with LED lights because LEDs consume very, very little energy. It takes just a little bit of energy, to make them light up. Couldn't use a 60 watt or 40 watt light bulb. You'd have to have, a huge amount of material to make that kind. And we'll look at, how much power this little trick makes. But they make it, and then they add salt water to this mixture, and it's the salt, the water, and the other components in the energy source. I won't call it a battery because it's not storing it, but the salt water makes this reaction happen, which produces enough electricity to power a light, a small LED light, and therefore, boom. Like if you happen to see my thumbnail, That's an image that I had Gemini create of this, making it in a mason jar. And we'll look at some of these ideas that uh, instructions that Gemini gave me about how to make these lights. But come to find out, you can buy them off Amazon and different places as camping lights or survival lights or whatever. So you get the components and they're already put together. And then what you do, if you're in a situation where you need emergency lighting, you add the water and the salt and mix it. And then once you do that, it makes light. And it even said, if you we'll look at this one, you can use urine. Your urine, somebody else's urine, probably even doggy pee. But there's enough electrolytes, enough salt in urine to activate these survival lights. So I think that's pretty cool. But like I said, it's not free because you have to build these things, and some of the components are common but not common. I guess the biggest one, we'll look at this. Let me get this set up. And yes, we'll probably look at a video. Why? I've had really good luck, okay? I've had some videos that were blocked in Russia or India because of some music or something we were listening to, that it was country restricted, but never in the United States. Never had a copyright strike against it, against my channel. But, you know, I've done 200 and some of them, not all of them use videos, but a lot of them do because, you know, it's a good source of information. And, you know, you spark ideas and you can talk about it. So we'll probably look at a video and I'll just roll the dice again like I have been. Let me get me down. And Gemini told me about how to look for things. I'm going to have to pay more attention to that. But I did get Gemini to look at a couple and give me the, I guess maybe the thumbs up about some of them that were safe. And we'll look at a couple of those. So let's get back up near the top. Zippity doo dah, zippity a, up to the top we go. Oh no, don't be freaking out on me. All right, keep going up. I had quite the conversation with Gemini this evening. That's not it. Okay, getting up here. We're getting up here. We're getting to the top. I would do this, but then it freezes up. Okay, so here we are at the top. All right, so I asked Gemini if it wouldn't mind explaining these lights that run off seawater. That's all I said. I said, tell me about the lights that can run off salt water. Seawater is what I said, salt waters. It said, these lights aren't magic. Well, I didn't say anything about them being magic. They're essentially water-activated batteries. Okay. But they're not storing energy. They're actually making it. So I'm going to say water-activated generators. While most people think the salt is the fuel, it's actually the metal inside these lights that provides the energy. The salt water just acts as the key that starts the chemical reaction. Okay, so how it works. And here's where the high school science kind of kicked in for me when I started thinking about these things. Inside the lamps, I'm going to call them different things. Lamps, generators, batteries, whatever, is a galvanic cell. Now, see, that rung a bell for me, which is a simple battery. The anode, which I believe is the negative part of said battery, uses a plate of magnesium or aluminum. Okay, we're talking about cost. These things aren't free. There's one. Magnesium or aluminum. I'm going to go with aluminum because I think it's more common. I may have more magnesium than I know, but I know I've got aluminum. The cathode, which I'm pretty sure is the positive side, is often a carbon-based material. Now you'd think carbon steel. No, not enough carbon. So the electrolyte, this is where the salt water comes in. By adding salt water, you create a bridge that allows electrons, science class, to flow from the magnesium to the carbon, which powers the LED. Now, there's a caveat to that too. If you want to make this a small container and use small elements and a small amount of water, then you have to have another component in there that you have to buy that boosts that energy enough to really turn on an LED to make it light bright, or bright light bright. Remember those light brights? I think I got one here at the house somewhere. They were pretty cool. In a survival situation, many of these lights will also run on seawater or even urine, because those liquids also contain the necessary electrolytes to start the reaction. All right, I told you about that. So there's popular brands: Water Light by Dyna, Salt Lamp, Ion Lamp, or Ion Light, and generic emergency lantern. So you can find them on Amazon, that kind of stuff. Here's the one. The Salt Lamp is sustainable alternative lighting. A social enterprise from the Philippines runs their lamps for 8 hours on a single glass of water and 2 teaspoons of salt. That's pretty good. For 8 hours, okay, put a couple of teaspoons of salt with some water, stir it all up, pour it into this container, and boom, you've got light for 8 hours. All right, so scroll down here. This top one, Water Light by Diana, whatever. The high-tech version, designed for the Huawei people in Colombia. It can provide light up to 45 days on half a liter of salt water, and even use a USB port to charge a phone. Well, that's pretty good. So 45 days. Now, what we'll learn about that is it's always working. So in order to stop the reaction, you've got to pour out the water and just leave it dry. I've got to stop that. Leave it dry. My little bunnies like to get in on that. You have to leave it dry. In one of the kits, or one of the ideas that it gave me, it says you could put a switch on it to turn the light off. You turn the light off, but it's still generating power. You don't turn that off unless you pour the water out and the salt, or pull the anode and the cathode out so there's no more reaction. Otherwise, it just runs all the time. And as a side note, the chemical reaction that happens creates hydrogen gas. All right, so the little bubbles coming out there, I thought of putting it in a mason jar so then you could see the light glowing. You'd see the little bubbles coming out. You got to release that gas, or it would build pressure in the container and pop the container. Not good. Okay, so talks about the catch is the consumables. The anode corrodes. As the lamp runs, the magnesium plate slowly dissolves. It's being consumed by the electricity. Depending on the model, you even replace the metal plate for this every 200 hours. For high-end models like Water Light, it can be up to over 5,000 hours. That's a lot, but I don't know how big they are. I mean, it might be the size of a suitcase. I don't know. Depending on the model, you'll eventually need to replace the metal plate. Oh, sorry, read that. Cleaning. You have to clean the salt gunk out of it. So magnesium hydroxide is created. It builds up on the inside, and it starts to dim the light. So you have to clean them. Nobody thought this was a Himalayan salt. All right. I asked it how you could do a DIY light, and it gave me one that was more of a survival technique, it's kind of cool. We'll look at it here. So as we talk about it, think about you've got to set this thing up. You know, you can't MacGyver this unless you're just a MacGyver. So you got to think about it. You got to get these ingredients. You got to build this thing, and then when you're ready to use it, you have to add your salt water. All right. So get down here where it was. Okay. So it's talking about using a 2-inch piece of PVC pipe about 6 inches long and 2 matching cap ends. The anode, which is the negative, is a magnesium rod. You can buy them as survival fire starters or sacrificial anodes online. All right, so as a side note, one of the things, if you've ever had a camper that's had a hot water heater in it or an outboard motor on a boat, they have sacrificial anode, and I guess they're magnesium. The outboard motors have them on the part that sticks down into the water. And the reason I was told that they had this was so that the corrosion attacks the anode instead of attacking your outboard motor. So that's one way to keep it from, rusting the outboard motor. The thing about the hot water heater for a camper is most of them, they have a drain plug and they're pretty good size. Well, when you screw the drain plug out, on the end of them is a magnesium rod. So every winter, what I used to do is I would drain the water when I was winterizing my camper. I would drain the water out of the hot water heater and check the anode rod, and I guess it was magnesium. I don't know, can't say that for sure because it was in the hot water tank. And it was the sacrificial portion so that the chemical reactions and things going on inside the hot water tank didn't destroy the tank itself. It would destroy the anode rod, and then what you would do is when it got too corroded to use, it would fall apart. You had to go buy another plug and had another anode rod on it, and then you had to clean out and flush your hot water heater because that stuff would settle in it, or the tank, the hot water tank. All right, so you can buy magnesium rod as survival fire starters, which are usually about that big. You scrape them off and strike them, boom. Or you can buy sacrificial anodes online. Don't know how big. The cathode, which is the positive side, it's going to make it out of activated charcoal. Now remember I said you had to get these things together, right? You got to collect them. You can get aquarium filter carbon or carbon rod from an old heavy-duty zinc carbon battery. Don't do that. Don't be cutting up old batteries to try to get the rods out of the centers of them. It's going to end poorly because batteries aren't something you just go monkeying around with, right? Especially you're cutting them up and opening them up, getting the rods out of them. All that gunk that's in there, bad mojo. Don't mess with those things. Find something online and buy it if you're going to build one of these. All right, and a separator. Talked about some felt or a thick rag. Now, here's where we'll read this. It talked about electronics. You'll need one Julian Thief module. I didn't make the name up, I'm just reading it. You can search Julian Thief kit, or a 1.5 volt to 3 volt boost converter. Now, like I was saying before, these, electrical generators create power, but not really enough to make an LED light up bright. So this is how it's talking about boosting that energy made by the water and the anode and the cathode into something that really makes the light bright. There's that nice little rhyme, light bright. This is essential to make one cell power a bright light or a bright LED. All right, white is the brightest light, and you'll need a small toggle switch. So what it's wanting you to do is it's wanting you to get PVC. You're going to glue one cap on the PVC. You're going to put the rod down in there. It's going to be wrapped in this rag. Then you're going to stuff the charcoal around it, and it's separating the charcoal from the rod with the rag. Then you're going to wire it up, and you're going to put the little booster in there, and then you're going to put the toggle switch in there, and you're going to put the light on top like a flashlight. Then when you want to use it, you take your electrolyte, which is this bottom thing. It says take water, table salt, and Epsom salt. The Epsom salt significantly boosts performance and reduces the gunk buildup. That's a positive. So talks about drilling the holes, building the core. You wrap the anode or the magnesium rod in the layers of rag. You add the cathode, which is the charcoal. You fill the bottom of the PVC pipe with about an inch of charcoal, place the wrapped magnesium rod in the center, and then fill around between the gap between the PVC and the rod. All right, the important thing is those charcoal and your rod don't touch, and that's the rag. You attach a copper wire to the top of the magnesium rod. Makes sense, so it's the negative pole. You push a second copper wire into the charcoal. That's the positive side. Now you just wire those two to your Julian thief booster, wire the switch in, wire that to the light, so on and so forth. Okay, so you don't glue the top cap on because you're going to have to recharge the water or pour the water out if you ever want to turn it off completely. Otherwise, even though you turn the light off with the switch, it's still going to be generating electricity and hydrogen gas. And that's another hole you have to put into the top of the PVC to let the hydrogen gas out. So when I was reading all this stuff, I was thinking, that's really cool, but it sounds kind of messy. Now this, when you charge this type of survival, I'm going to call it a survival flashlight made out of PVC. After you mix your water, your Epsom salts, and your salt together, then you saturate the charcoal. And then you put the cap on and you're ready to roll. So that makes a little more sense in my mind because the water is being absorbed by the charcoal. It's not like, in my mind, I think this is the way it is. It's not like you can shake your now flashlight and hear water sloshing around in there. The charcoal has absorbed it, right? So, but you still have to drill a hole to let the hydrogen gas out. You build one of these other lights, like the one I was talking about, we'll look at that, out of a mason jar, and you got to have a hole in the top there to let the hydrogen gas out. You're going to let, if you tilt it or it falls over, you're going to let the water out also. So these things potentially, I've never looked at the commercial version, but these things potentially have to be standing upright. So yeah, Robert makes a good point. Magnesium rod in a regular water heater. And I'm with Robert, and this is an argument or a discussion we've had at work before. I just call what you have in your house that takes water and heats it and then lets you take a nice warm shower, I'll call those things a hot water heater. The argument is, no, it's just a water heater. Well, that's true, but my side is true also. Once the cold water goes in, it's heated. Let's just say it's heated to 127 degrees inside your tank. Now it's hot water. When it cools to 120 degrees, the heater kicks on, potentially, to heat the water. To heat what water? To heat hot water to even a hotter temperature. So in my book, and apparently in Robert's book, because he wrote it right there in the comments, it's there forever unless somebody pulls my video down, that he called it a hot water heater. Now, that's a little side note. Discuss that amongst yourselves. But he's right. In large home water heaters, hot water heaters, there is a magnesium rod in there. Now it's probably pretty good size, isn't it, Robert? I've never torn one apart, so I've never looked at one. So I don't know if it runs the full length of the tank. I don't know how it looks. I've never seen one. Can you replace them? I mean, I've got a hot water heater that's 20 years old. Do I need to replace the magnesium rod? I never have. Nobody's ever told me to. Because typically they die, I think, before that happens. But back to this. So you've got water in a jar. Don't tip it over because it's got a little hole to let the hydrogen gas out. Don't be going huffing around using it in a tent to light the tent because it'll probably fill your tent with hydrogen gas. I don't know how much it makes. It just says that's a byproduct. Okay, so to activate this little 2-inch PVC light we're making, you mix 2 tablespoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt into a cup of warm water, pour it into the pipe until the activated charcoal is fully saturated. All right, so to turn the light off, apparently it starts making light, I guess almost, pretty quick. You turn it off by using the switch, but here it is. For long-term storage, pour the water out and rinse the inside with fresh water. If left wet, the magnesium will continue to corrode slowly even if the light is off. So then it says after 50 to 100 hours of use, the magnesium rod will look eaten away. Simply pull out the old rod, wrap a new one in the cloth, and drop it back in. So, a couple of flaws there. You got a tube, you got the rod in the middle, then you've got charcoal around it and in the bottom. Now, you pour the water in there, it saturates the charcoal. Does it keep the charcoal in place? Now remember, your magnesium rod's wrapped in some kind of cloth. You go pulling that out to renew it. Would the charcoal just kind of cave in that hole? I mean, because the rod's going to leave a hole in the middle of your PVC. Or does it, maybe it hardens? I don't know. I have no idea. I've never made one. But that was a flaw that I thought about when it was talking about, Jim and I were talking about building one of those. Well, just pull it out and put another one in. Yeah, that sounds good and fine on paper, but reality is a totally different bird. Totally different bird. So, the PVC can be dropped, stepped on, or tossed in a bag. But I wouldn't do that after you poured the water in it because it might leak out, right? Without the jewel thief, the light is a dim orange glow. With it, it is the functional lantern. So what I talked about before, it takes a 1.5 volts and bumps it to 3, which apparently is enough to make small LEDs light up. Unlike traditional batteries that leak or lose charge, The dry lantern will sit in a drawer for 20 years and start to work the second you add water, salt water. I would like to build one, but I want to build one in a mason jar. And here's why. You know, LEDs in their basic form are just like little chips. Of, you know, I know you've seen them. Throwing away a bunch of them out of stupid LED lights that you put in your ceiling, and then they go bad and they start blinking, the controls go crazy and they don't turn on anymore. So the LEDs are there. And I've actually seen some of those LED lights where one little square will go out and it messes up the whole thing like old Christmas tree lights. But anyway. I mean, that's fine for a flashlight. This doesn't talk about putting any kind of cover over it or protective, lens over it or anything like that. So I don't know how, it's kind of vague on how you attach the LED, what type of LED to use, which one works the best, the wafer style or whatever. It doesn't really say. So my idea was to make like a sidewalk light, a tiki torch kind of style, where it's built into a mason jar. So that's when I said, hey, you know what? I'd like to see it as a tiki light. So it's a lot more work. I'm not going to say it's a little more work. It's a lot more work. Okay, so what it says, what Gemini says, to build the tiki light, the lid is going to be the control center, which makes sense. Let's see. Go back up here to materials list. You need a 16 or 32 ounce jar, a wide mouth jar, preferably one with a plastic lid. And here's why. You use a metal lid, you have to drill holes in it. You put the anode and the cathode in the metal lid. You have to insulate them from the metal lid, otherwise they'll short together. No more worky. The anode, or the negative, get the magnesium rod. Look like solid silver colored metal. You need a magnesium rod. The cathode, which is the positive side, you're going to use graphite carbon rod. Not charcoal this time. The graphite carbon rod are often used for EDM machining or welding. They are deep black and contrast beautifully with the silver magnesium. And the secret sauce is a 0.9 volt to 5 volt DC boost converter module. Since one jar only produces 1.5 volts to 1.2 to 1.5 volts, the tiny chip takes that low voltage and turns it up to 5 volts to run bright LEDs. It uses the word LEDs with plurals. You're going to need copper wire, stainless steel bolts and nuts to mount the rods to the lids. You're going to need Epsom salts, table salt, and water. So you drill holes into the mason jar lid about 2 inches apart. You use stainless steel bolts to hang the magnesium and graphite rods so they dangle into the jar. Makes sense so far. They can't touch. That's another problem. Drill a tiny hole, breather hole, to let the reaction of the hydrogen gas out from the reaction. You connect the magnesium rod to the negative input of your boost module. All right. The graphite rod, which is the positive rod, to the positive side of the module. And you solder your LED to the outside of the module, the terminals that go output. All right. To get a glow rather than a bright light, you could tint the water or use a diffusion light. The LED from the bottom or the tops of the light hits the rods and the bubbles. Okay, so initially the water will be crystal clear. Over time it will turn a bit cloudy since the magnesium is breaking down. The single jar will easily run a high bright LED for 24 to 48 hours before the water needs to be changed. The magnesium rod itself will last for weeks of continuous use. If you want to keep it as an emergency light, store the jar dry with salt inside. Just add water when the power goes out. So you can put some of these together, and then if you have a power outage, you know, you have your jar full of your stuff with, it says you can put salt in the bottom because it's dry. Then when the power goes out, pour your water down in there, screw the lid back on, turn it on, and you got light. Okay, so that was the idea. This was the first picture that it drew for me when I was talking about I was going to do this. And I didn't like that. I wanted it to glow, so it did this. Then I asked it to put the light at the bottom, which was my favorite. So this is what I would like to try to maybe build. And here was Jim and I's suggestion, and it kind of makes sense. You can't put the LED into the water. You can, but during the reaction between the anode and the cathode, it's going to eat the LED. It's not going to last. So what Jim and I suggested, and here's if you put it on the lid, mount everything to the lid, you know, and you put the water in it, then the light would shine down into the water like this one. See, the LED's up in here, and it's shining down into the water, which gives it a nice color, but it doesn't give you the same kind of glow as if the light's at the bottom. So what Jim and I suggested was you could encase the LED in high quality silicone and make a glob out of it. Or you could take a tube, I don't know where you would get an acrylic or plastic tube, stick the tube down in there and like glue it or seal it on the end and put the light and the wires down in the tube. And then you just keep the tube end above the water so that water doesn't get down into the tube. And so there you have it. You could put the light, the LED, the wires, and everything in a tube, put the tube in the jar. You don't have to brace it some way to keep it centered, and then build your light, your top, and everything. Hook the wires to it, and then when you go to light it, you turn it on, you add the water, and the LED's at the bottom and glows. And you can put your little blue food coloring in it or something, or red, or whatever it might be, to give it that nice ambiance. That's the kind of cool thing I would like to see done. I think that would be cool. But yeah, is it free energy? No, it's not. There's a lot of work goes into using the energy. The chemical reaction is free. That's nature. That's God's creation. You've got to make that happen in a controlled circumstance so then you can harness it and put it to your use. But it's not free. It's not free. The idea, the knowledge now, since you've watched my show, it didn't cost you anything. Well, it did cost you something. You got to have a computer or a phone. You got to have internet. You got to have the fast internet so you can stream it. It's costing you. Not directly, but indirectly, it's costing you. So then you can make your own little LED lights. Seems like a lot of work, but it would be cool. You know, you go camping, you could just add some salt and salt water, and then you could have your nice little, tiki lights out there. Then at night, I guess you could unscrew it. You pour the salt water out, put it back together, light goes out, you go to bed. Next night, get it out, mix salt and Epsom salts, put it in the water, screw the thing back down, Boom. You got more light. Several in an experiment make lemon potato energy or a Baghdad battery. So you're going to have to tell me what a Baghdad battery is. Just give me a brief description, or you can come on the next show and you can tell us how to make a Baghdad battery. That's hard to say. Baghdad battery, Baghdad battery, Baghdad water bottle. Right? All right. So while Robert's typing up his short description of what a Baghdad battery is, I'm going to give you this spiel about if you made it this far in the video, because apparently it's probably just me and Robert here this evening. That's okay. I like chatting with Roberto. Like, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, so then when I go live, you'll get a notification. You can jump in on the chat, take advantage of this intellectual stimulating conversation that we're doing here. Or not, that's fine. Just subscribe to the channel, turn the bell on, and when it says, hey, there's another video out there, just go watch it at your leisure. Put it up on the big screen TV and sit back with your cup of coffee or your adult beverage and make fun of us, or make fun of me, as I try to explain these things to you and get in trouble with the BBC. So, let's look real quick down maybe a little further. Not that guy. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Where did we get? Oh, slowly thinking. Let's see. Let's see if this one works. No, that one doesn't work. Does this one work? I won't be mad. This one doesn't work. Where are they? Not that guy. Oh, those are the ones that tried to find the links and it was broke. All right, here we go. Let's look at this one. Tablespoon of salt and allow it to dissolve. Stir it up, stir it up. Really quick. Alright. Missed it. Alright, hold on. You can't see that very well. Alright, here we go. A copper rod is the cathode, a zinc nail is the anode. In one goes, in the other goes. There's your wires for your LEDs. Alright, you can't see that either. There you go, he's wiring up the LED. See, that one's encased. There it is. Just that simple. So I'll have to give credit. That was very simple. This was by Klein Movie Recaps. I don't know. Klein Movie Recaps. Says he's got 6,048 viewers. That's pretty cool. All right. So it was just that simple. Water, zinc nail, copper wire, hook the two to an LED, and you get it to come on. Now, would that make a good flashlight? Yeah, if you were camping, maybe. You had your zinc nail and some copper wire and an LED. Only thing, you're a glass of salt water away from having some light. That's pretty cool. All right. So, anyway, like, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment. Robert's going to, I guess I'm just going to have to look up what a Baghdad battery is. There's probably something like that. See, I think this stuff is kind of new. I know it's not new, but it's not, you know, I think it ought to be more common than what it is because it's pretty, you know, pretty cool. And maybe it is. Between survivalists and campers and all that kind of stuff, maybe it is more common than what I know. I live under a rock, people. Okay? I live under a rock. So anyway, I appreciate you tuning in, Robert. I appreciate you stopping by again. And I'm going to come up with another real, recorded video here pretty soon. I got something I've been doing in the basement, in the garage, working on cars, all that stuff. It's, I don't know if it really ties in. It kind of ties in with my sandblasting and my powder coating videos. It's probably a different way of looking at, you know, how to handle your rust and that kind of stuff. But anyway, I appreciate you. And tune in next Thursday, 9 o'clock. Watch for the other videos. And have a good weekend. If it's not your Thursday, or if it's not your Friday, then you got one more day. You can hang in there. I'm sure you can do it. All right.